Hi, Eric Lanask here. We're in Santa Clara at Editor's Day, and on the program with me is Andrew Lee from Jitterbit. Andrew, thanks for joining me. Good to have you with us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So, we're in this really exciting, really interesting world. We've got applications being developed left and right, enterprises doing stuff on-prem and the cloud, who knows what else. And I think the one key, that's the one thing, and this is really kind of where you come in, is it's all got to be connected somehow. And how's that all working out?
Well, that's the good news, right? The good news is if I'm a CIO or I'm the VP of marketing or sales, I've got more technology available to me than I ever had before. I've got hundreds, even thousands of applications and cloud services and mobile devices that can help my team be more effective. The problem with this is that I've got more devices and applications and data to make my team more effective, and they don't talk. They don't communicate. They don't connect. And if I'm like most companies out there, I've got a bunch of traditional middleware that I bought back in the days of service-oriented architecture, and it's supposed to get everything to talk, but it doesn't. It doesn't work in today's modern architecture. So at Jitterbit, we've actually come up with a modern cloud-based digital connectivity platform designed for the needs of modern integration.
So let me go back to the statement that you made a moment ago, that it doesn't work with today's architecture. Why not?
Well, number one problem, hybrid integration.
Okay.
So 90% of all CIOs and businesses now have a hybrid architecture. And what I mean by a hybrid architecture is you've got to be able to get the stuff that lives back behind the firewall, your traditional ERP, SAP, Oracle, Microsoft, all the databases and data warehouses, all the stuff that holds, frankly, 90% of your enterprise data. You've got to be able to get that to communicate with all these new cloud platforms. That could be Salesforce.com, it could be DocuSign, it could be NetSuite. And then the third thing that you've got to connect in the modern architecture, and this one's rushing down the freeway and nobody knows exactly how to deal with it, is you've got to be able to connect to the Internet of Things. And that promises 50 billion more things that have to be connected. And the modern on-premise integration platforms that were designed, frankly, 12 to 15 years ago for service-oriented architecture, enterprise service buses or ETL on-premise servers, these things were never designed for the needs of communicating in and out of a firewall, let alone the real-time APIs that we're starting to see today.
So what are you at Jitterbit doing to change that?
So at Jitterbit, we've taken a whole new approach to this. Just as we saw Salesforce transform CRM, just as we saw NetSuite really transform ERP, Jitterbit is really bringing a modern multi-tenant cloud approach to traditional integration. And we really believe traditional integration is moving to digital connectivity. We are focused in on that hybrid integration scenario. So we don't need to necessarily replace everything that you have inside. We don't have to replace your ESB or your middleware. We could, but more importantly, we can work together with it. And we facilitate that connection in and out of the firewall. We have thousands of Salesforce.com customers that are communicating back to ERP applications like SAP. Probably one of my favorites would be Mophie. If you know Mophie, kind of the battery packs that you attach on the back of the iPhone. Mophie was growing, hundreds of percent per year. And these guys were going global. They needed to be able to figure out, how do I do omni-channel in a modern digital world? How do I, connect and sell to all of these customers over all the different channels? And then at the same time, they had kind of a legacy back end. They had SAP on the back end. And what they ended up doing is they standardized on Salesforce.com for Sales Cloud and for Service Cloud and for e-commerce. They used a number of other e-commerce applications like Magento, but they couldn't get all of this to communicate and process orders and capture the inventory from the back office. So they brought in Jitterbit. In less than 6 months, we basically orchestrated the entire omni-channel buying process for them. And then in the next 3 months, they actually reversed the whole process to redo the way that they actually service and support their customers.
So I imagine from the enterprise perspective, right, the more these different applications and services that you're using, the more difficult that whole integration process becomes. So if you've got somebody like a Jitterbit providing that connectivity between the different apps, then it becomes much easier. Because certainly, if you have a one-to-one relationship, you can Salesforce can build in integration to one back-end application, for instance, but there's too much going on, like you said.
That's exactly it. There's this explosion of endpoints and services. And we talk about that transformation to a digital business and how only 30% of companies are going to be able to transform into digital business. If you just peel that back just one layer, you look, the problem underneath is really about connectivity. The one that I love is something like an Uber. Everybody loves to quote Uber and say how Uber transformed their industry and how we all have to transform our industries the way that Uber did to the taxi cab industry. But if you look at what Uber did, it's really a connectivity story. They connected the mobile device that was sitting in your hand. They connected that to the map application that was running on that device. They connected that to the mobile application that the driver had in his car. They connected that to the modern call center that was running within Uber itself. And my favorite is then they connected out to the credit card billing system so that all of these interact with you in a very orchestrated way. So they took a whole set of APIs and services that already existed and they connected it in a different way. And that's how they transformed their industry. So what we would tell you at Jitterbit is that's really the trick. For all modern CEOs and CIOs and enterprise architects, the real way to digitalize your company is to take advantage of these thousands of services that are available to you and put them together in creative and compelling new ways that redefine the customer experience. And that's what the Jitterbit platform is all about.
So how does it all work if you've got a company using Jitterbit and wants to start to use a new service or a new application? How do they make that all work?
So usually we get brought in when somebody brings in a new platform. So they make a decision that they want to use a new cloud service. It could be Salesforce, it could be Microsoft Cloud, it could be Oracle Cloud, it could be Amazon. And they suddenly have a need to be able to connect back to their legacy system. And they go out their traditional middleware that they might have in-house and they get an estimate that says, well, it's going to cost me $500,000, 6 months, and 3 people. And that's just not realistic considering that maybe Salesforce.com cost them $150,000. So they bring in something like Jitterbit, and the key with bringing in Jitterbit is that we call it agile integration. You should be able to build the vast majority of your integrations in 10 days or less. And 75% of our customers do. So 75% of our customers are able to build an integration between something like a Salesforce Sales Cloud to JD Edwards and get that up and running and live in less than 10 days. And then after you've built that integration, maybe you build another integration out to an e-commerce platform. Or maybe you integrate again to your database. And this is the way that modern architecture is going to start to build, is just as we do agile development, you'll do agile integration as well.
And that makes it a lot easier for companies to start using or launch department-specific apps, right? Because it's much easier to integrate into those back ends.
That's exactly it. And you bring up a good point. The big shift that we're also seeing within integration is who does the work.
Yeah.
So integration for the last 2 decades has always been the integration developer that comes in and he codes in some integration language and he puts together the different APIs and he basically spends 60, 90 days on site and then he takes off and the business user goes on and tries to figure out what he did. Well, that's changing. At Jitterbit, we've designed the application to really be used and by the systems administrator. So whether it's the Salesforce administrator, the NetSuite administrator, it's the business owner.
Right.
And they need to be able to do it in a very easy, intuitive way. We deliver reusable solutions for the most common integrations that we see across the many different endpoints. And our goal is to kind of get the 99% of us that are using business applications to be able to build and connect and deploy our own integrations out in a very quick time to value.
Excellent. Andrew, sounds fantastic. Thank you so much for being with us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thanks.